Shalom. Welcome to Hebrew Literacy. Today we will be continuing our directed Hebrew immersion in the book of Judges. We will be doing an auditory focus, a focus on auditory learning style. So whatever your level of Hebrew is, this should be useful for you. All right, let's get started. You don't need to watch the screen, but you can if you want. And you can also hold a book, watch the road, whatever it is you need to be doing. Okay? Just, if you can, try to hear the words and try to think about what they mean in English or in your language before I say it. If you don't know, that's also fine. But if you hear a word that you know, make sure you beat me to the punch and telling you what it means as much as you can. So, Judges chapter 3, verse 1. Ve'ele hagoyim asher hiniach Adonai lenasot bam et Yisrael et kol asher lo yad'u et kol milchamot Canaan. All right. Now I know that was fast. Don't worry. We're going to pick it apart now. Ve'ele. Ve, that's the vav. It would have been a w in ancient times. It would have said ve'ele. Now, ele means these. And Hebrew doesn't need to say is or are when we're talking about something in what we would call the present tense in English. You don't need is or are. And if you think about it, in communication, is or are, it's kind of superfluous, right? Like if I want to say I'm the Incredible Hulk. I always tell children, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. But if you're the Incredible Hulk, you don't have to say, I am green. You could say, are green. Everybody understands what he's saying. It's clear. So it's really superfluous. And many languages do quite well, including Russian and Slovak and Ukrainian, without having to say is or are, as did Biblical Hebrew. So, now, ele, these are ha-goyim, the goyim, the nations, or the peoples. Probably nations is better here. Ha'amim is more common for peoples. Asher, aleph, shin, resh, asher, whom hiniach Adonai. Hiniach Adonai. Now the word is from the verbal root nuach. Nun, vav, or you can say waw, chet. And this has the general idea of rest. It's where Noah gets his name from. In the very basic meaning, the kal binyan, the simple verbal stem, it means to settle down, to rest, or even stay settled. Sometimes it has the idea of to wait for someone. Like the idea is you're resting and waiting, right? Not in any particular hurry. Now, what's happened here we've lost the middle root letter, the waw. The vav is gone. The root is nun, vav, chet, and the vav is gone. That's because it's a hollow verb. Verbs that have a vav as the middle root letter, they're considered hollow. Because it was a w sound back in the day. It wasn't a v. It was never a v sound in ancient times. People are telling you that like God's name has a v sound in it, they're trying to hoodwink you. No Hebrew scholar thinks this. Okay? This is a modern development. So, because w, it's kind of a light letter, it would disappear pretty easily. The verb was hollow. And we learned that in the hiphil-binyan, the causative or elative verbal stem, there are different ways to recognize when a verb is in that, whatever the basic meaning is, to cause that thing to happen. One is we have a prefix hey on it. And then we have this here. Instead of Noach, it's hiniach, right? So we do have a hey in the front there. And then the other way is you'll sometimes see a yod jammed in before the third root letter. All right? And we have that here too. There's a yod in front of the chet. So hiniach, this is a hiphil-perfect form. So hiniach Adonai. So what is the hiphil? The hiphil literally means to cause to rest. To cause to rest. It can mean to secure repose, right? Also just to rest without the actual causative meaning. It can mean to pacify or to satisfy. And one time in Mishlei, in Proverbs 29:17, it kind of has the feeling of to make glad, right? Which you could see that if you've been worried for a long time, if you've been in captivity or something, say if you've been an innocent person who was kidnapped by an evil Hamasnik, and you've been there for hundreds of days, and then you're rescued by the wonderful Israeli Defense Forces, and they bring you home, and they let you rest. That's cause to rejoice, isn't it? Cause to be glad. So this one's a hiphil. This one basically has that kind of... Now, it can also have the idea of to set something down, right? To set something, you're causing it to rest. Think about like you've got a book, it's in your hands, it's open, you're flipping through it, it's not resting. But you could hiniach al hashulchan, you could set it down on the table, you could cause it to rest on the table with an idea of a bit more permanence than just setting it there, just seeming it there or nataning it there. Okay, everybody with me? All right. So, asher whom hiniach Adonai. Adonai, it will be hyperliteral, caused to rest. He basically left them alone. He didn't intervene with them. He didn't make their walls come tumbling down. Ve'eli hagoyim asher hiniach Adonai. Now these are the nations whom Hashem caused to rest. He left them alone. Lenasot b'am. Bam. Lenasot. So what's going on here with lenasot? So this is a construct form of the verb, an infinitive construct. It's the piel form from nasa, nun, samech, hey. And we are doing auditory learning night, and those who are primarily auditory learners oftentimes confuse words that sound similar, right? So when I tell you nasa, they might think about nasa, to carry, to lift, to bear, right? Like I always say, NASA carries things into space, right? That is nun sin, aleph. This word is nun samech, hey. See, it's got two different root letters. And it's in the PL form. You can tell there's a strong dagesh in the samech. So this word, in the basic, well, I don't think it even occurs in the call. I don't think we ever get it in the call. So in the nifal, like we have it here, it has the idea of to put to the test, right? This is to put to the test. We see this with Abraham Avinu. Okay, you want to see if the person will succeed, even to conduct a test, right? Now, it can sometimes have the idea of to train someone, right? Like you're providing them with experiences. We see that in the form masa, which we saw in a Torah portion recently, to give Israel experiences that would train them, right? All right. So, lenasot, to put to the test, bam, that's bait. So in this case, I'm going to translate that with. You could be literal and say in, and then the mem is bam, with them, or in them. Okay, with them. What's the object of being put to the test? Who's being put to the test? The next two words, et Yisrael. Et Yisrael. Israel is being put to the test. Bam, with them. With whom? Hagoyim. So that first part, let's read it again a bit faster. Ve'eli hagoyim asher hiniach Adonai lenasot bam et Yisrael. Lenasot, to put to the test, bam, with them et Israel, Israel. Continuing on. 8, kol asher. 8, just another definite direct object marker. Kol asher. All which lo yade'u. Lo, not yade'u. The u means they. The verb is yada. Yod, dalet, ayin. Yada. 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 Lo yada'u. They did not know. 8, definite direct object marker. So these 3 8s, they're all going back to the verb lemasot, to put to the test, bomb with them, or by means of them, et Israel, et kol asher lo yada'u, everything or everyone who did not know. 8, and then here comes the third one, 8, kol milchamot Canaan, kol, all of the milchamot Canaan. It's a construct chain. There's 3 words in the chain. Excuse me. The last word is a name. Canaan. Canaan. So we're going to impart the definiteness of that last word to the other words in the chain. Literally, kol, the all of milchamot, the wars of Canaan. So we can drop that first thing. It doesn't sound right in English. So kol milchamot Canaan, all of the wars of Canaan. Can also mean battles, milchama. Lo yisagoy el goy cherev, lo yimadu milchama, lo yisagoy el goy cherev, lo yimadu milchama. Nice song from Isaiah there. All right, excuse me, just coughing a bit. Verse 2, Rak lema'an da'at דרות בני ישראל ל+למד+ם מלחמה רק אשר לפנים לא ידעום. All right, let's pick that apart. רק. For our German speakers, this would be like null. Auf Yiddish, null, or sometimes blois. Okay, continuing. So just or only lema'an, lamed mem. Oh, by the way, the previous word, if you're just listening, is reish kof, or reish kuf. Sometimes people call that rak. Lema'an, for the purpose of, or so that. You just need to learn that together. You don't worry about the lamed and the ma'an. It's one word. Lema'an, for the purpose of, or so that. Da'at, dalet, ayin, tav. This is a construct form. It's an infinitive construct form from the verb yada, yod, dalet, ayin, to know. So, in order, da'at is like knowing of, or education of, or an experience of. Dorot. This is dalet, vav, reish, and it has the meaning of a generation. Dor. The plural is dorot, generation. So, rak lema'an da'at dorot, only so that, or only for the purpose of experience or education of generations of Bnei Yisrael. That's a long construct chain. Da'at derot Bnei Yisrael. And so because the last word, just like previously we had Canaan, now the last word is Israel. That's a name. So the entire construct chain is going to be definite. So we can try to put the word the in front of every word. So rak lema'an, only for the purpose of. Da'at, the education of Derot, the generations of Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel. And you should almost always, when we see Bnei Israel, it's almost always going to be children of Israel, not sons of Israel. That is a bad translation if your translation says the sons of Israel, because we're talking about all the people. We're not just talking about the boys. But really, the only time that's going to be the sons of Israel is when we're talking about the tribal leaders, right? The actual sons. All right. Or if you have it in contradistinction to, it says Bnei Israel uvenot Israel, the sons of Israel and the daughters of Israel. Then clearly we're not saying the children of Israel and the daughters, like the daughters aren't children too. So you can tell in context. Okay. Thank you for everyone who's here. I hope you're learning from this. I hope you appreciate the auditory expansion of your mind, of your Hebrew understanding that this can provide, even if you are a primarily visual learner. Please, if you're not doing any kind of support for this ministry, but you find what we're putting out here on YouTube to be useful, then please consider give us a quarter or something, toss a little something our way. You could become, the easiest way is to become a patron over at patreon.com/Hebrew literacy. And there's rewards for our patrons. There's free videos and stuff that aren't available to the general public that are kind of a thank you. So there's that. Or there's other ways. You can check in the description of the video down below if you want to find other ways to give. That's highly appreciated. I hate asking, but I'm learning. You just got to do this kind of thing in ministry sometimes. You just have to ask. You got to remind people that, hey, living in the developing world here, we could use some help. Appreciate that. All right. Continuing on. ל+למד+ם מלחמה. ל+למד+ם מלחמה. Now we have another infinitive. This is a PL infinitive construct. So the verbal root lamad, lamed, mem, dalet, is to learn, to study. Lamad. And what's really interesting is when you change that kal binyan, the light verbal stem, to an intensive form, which is the PL. By the way, if you don't have any clue what I'm talking about when I mention binyanim, you don't have to study grammar to learn from the directed immersion. You really don't. All that grammar does, it's just pointing out the patterns. That's really all it does. It points out the patterns to help you recognize them more easily, right? But if you want to have just kind of a quick overview of the elegance of biblical and ancient Hebrew, the way the verbal system worked, I have a video on a different playlist here on this channel, here on Hebrew Literacy. You can check the playlist Language Snippets. Click on that playlist, and then just scan. You'll see the thumbnail of one of the videos is a menorah. Click that one. And in that one, I use a menorah with some animations to show you how the different verbal stems map to different branches on the menorah. And it's quite symmetrical. I think you'll enjoy that if you haven't seen that yet. Even if you already know the binyanim and you haven't seen this approach, you might appreciate it. All right. Okay. So the PL, as I explained in that video, it takes the basic meaning of the verbal stem, the verbal root, pardon me, and usually it gives you an intensive meaning of that. Sometimes causative, because cause can actually be from intensifying. So lamad, the basic meaning, the kal, which just means light, as in not heavy, light, not photons light, but not heavy. Lamad means study, learn. The intensive binyan, limed, where we put a dot in the middle root letter and we intensify it, there's two of those middle letters now, two mems, means to teach, which really is true. When you teach something, you truly must learn it. I remember when I was working at my first job after college, and one of the other engineers came around, and at lunch break, everybody on the team, they'd kind of go to the cantina together, right? They'd go down. The company had their own cantina. That's not what we called it, but I can't remember the normal American word for it. So silly. And, they'd have lunch, but I always brought my own lunch and I would sit there studying my Hebrew Bible on my lunch break, right? And the technical lead on the night vision program, he saw me doing that, and he said, "Is that Hebrew?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Do you understand that?" I said, "A lot of it." I was studying, right? And he says, "Can you teach me?" It was all Hebrew Bible, right? So if it had been interlinear or paralleling, she might have not made such an assumption. And I said, "No." Yes, I can. Can you teach me? I said, "No." And he was a nice guy. Tom, shalom to you out there. I know you sometimes check in and listen. Tom's gone on to teach other people Hebrew as well now since then. Baruch Hashem. Anyway, he asked me, we got to talking about it. He said, "Well, here in this small town, where am I going to find a biblical Hebrew teacher?" And this is really before it was so easy to find anything on the internet, right? And I thought, he's got a point. And so I made clear, I said, "Look, you know, I have to look up words myself and stuff like that. So if you're okay with that, then sure." And so it turned out a lot of people were interested. And so once a week, we scheduled a room, and I had a little overhead projector, and I would write on the clear plastic with colored pens and stuff. And we did Hebrew grammar with, it was mostly Christians who were interested. And that was the first time I got into teaching it. So just kind of there's nobody else. And it's definitely true. After going through and teaching it, you refresh the grammar, right? And, you might understand when you're reading, but you might not exactly understand or remember the rule. And it really helps. So it's true that limeding is an intense form of lamading. Teaching is an intense form of learning. So le-lamed, this is to teach. And we have le-lamed to teach them with a verbal suffix. Le-lamedam, to teach them. Milchama, war. Continuing on. Rak asher lefanim lo yeda'um. Rak asher lefanim. Rak, only or just. Rak asher lefanim, those who were lefanim, before. Lo, not yeda'u, yeda'u, they did not know. Lo yeda'u, they did not know. Them. Yeda'u, they knew, but lo, they did not. And the mem is a little bit strange. It's not in every manuscript. If you're looking at the screen, you'll see there's a little B there, and that's telling us there are other manuscripts that don't have the mem. So this might be an enclitic mem, which is sometimes just put on a word to make the verse sound better. Although sometimes, more in poetry, it can be a placeholder for a different kind of verbal suffix. So it can be any verbal suffix, basically. So it could be saying, lo, not yeda'u, they did not know. Mum could be it, referring to the feminine milchama, war. You see, it can sometimes be like a variable suffix like that. Or it could just be an enclitic mem, just to make the whole thing sound good. Okay? So again, rak asher lefanim, only those, or only who, lefanim, before, lo yeda'um, they did not know it, like they didn't know how to do war back at those times, those who had not fought before. We sure know how now, don't we? Israelis know how now. Kind of been forced to get good at warfare by the constant attacks of the wicked Islamo-fascists. All right, verse 3. Chameshet sarnei Felishtim. Ha! Speaking of Felishtim. Chameshet sarnei Felishtim. So here we have a construct chain. It starts with chameshet, 5 of sarnei. This is from the word seren. It's samech resh nun. It's a segalit. That means there's 2 sounds in it. Seren, which is like a governor, like maybe a mayor, a governor, ruler of some kind of area. Maybe more like a mayor. Makes more sense. So the chameshet sarnei, from the plural construct, we drop the mem, right? 5 of the sarnei, mayors of, although there were city-states back then, so it's okay to say governor if you like, right? Of Philistine, Philistines. Vechol hakinaani, vechol, and chol, all of ha-kinaani, the Kinaani, the Canaanites, veha-Sidoni, and the Sidonians, veha-Chivi, or in those times it would have been veha-Chiwi, because the vav was a W sound, we're certain of that. The Chivites, or the Chivites. Yoshev, dwelling. Ha-Lebanon. So literally, dwelling. This is a construct form of the participle. It's very interesting. Dwelling of ha, so that's of mountain of ha-Lebanon, of the Lebanon region. Mehar Baal Hermon. Mehar. May, it's mem, with a tzere under it. It's may. Usually this is min, not usually, but we learn it as min, right? Meaning from. Hamotzerecha min haaretz, right? And you could say meh, and the noon would assimilate into the next letter, like making a contraction in English. Cannot becomes can't. Well, you can also say cannot, but cannot, right? Where you lose something there. One of the ends is gone. Cannot. You don't need it, right? This one of the ends, it just becomes can't. Well, the hey cannot take a dagesh. And so the little the chirik from meh in min, meaning from, but it lengthens to a tzere. You can think of that final noon. He became a dot, and he tried to go on the hay. He was rejected. He came down, and he lengthens that chirik to a tzere. May, from har Baal Hermon. So Baal Hermon, that's a name. Literally husband Hermon, or master of Hermon. So because that's a name, the har has to be definite. So Mehar, from the har, from the mountain of Baal Hermon. Ad, Ayin Dalit, until Levo Chamath. Levo Chamath. So Levo, this is an infinitive again, from Ba, or Bo really is the full root. So to come, or to arrive, Hamath, at Hamath, which is just another place in the whole Lebanon region. Wow, it's 33 minutes already. Look at that. I was thinking we'd do the full 5 verses I have in front, but I don't want to make these go too long and people stress about that. Let's go back through verses 1 through 3. Hold on a second. Yeah, I fixed it if anybody's looking. We'll read through again. Try to give the answer before I say it if you can, or at least think it if you can. Judges chapter 3, verse 1. Ve'ele hagoyim. Now, ele, these were, we have to say, it's not in the Hebrew, hagoyim, the nations. Asher hiniach Adonai. Asher, whom, hiniach, from the verb nuach, caused to rest or left unmolested, Adonai. Lenasot bam. Lenasot bam. To put to the test with them, et Yisrael, Israel. 8, kol asher. Everyone who lo yade'u, who did not know. 8, kol milchamot Canaan. Kol, all of the milchamot, wars of Canaan, of Canaan. Verse 2. Rak lema'an. Rak lema'an. Only so that, or for the purpose of, shtobri, da'at, derot, b'nei Yisrael. Da'at, dorot, bnei Yisrael. Da'at from yada, for knowledge or experience, learning of. So, we have to say the because Israel is the last word, right? The da'at, the knowledge or the experience of dorot, the generations of bnei, the children of Yisrael. Lelamedam milchama. Lelamedam milchama. To teach them milchama, war. Rak asher lefanim. Rak only asher, those who lefanim, before, lo yeda'um, lo did not, yeda'u, they did not know, and then the mem, it could be encletic, or it might be telling us it, like meaning warfare. Verse 3, Chameshet sarnei Philistine. Chameshet, related to Chamesh. 5, or the 5 of Sarnei, the Serens. Think of sarin gas, like ruling a town. Of the governors or mayors of Philistine, the Philistines. Vechol hakenaani. Vechol and chol, all of ha-kenaani, the Canaanites. V'hatzidoni, and the Sidonians. V'hachivi, or v'hachiwi, and the Chiwites. Yoshev har halevanon, of dwelling in the mountain of the Lebanon region. So we make it sound better in English. Who dwelled in the Lebanon mountains? Mehar Baal Hermon. Mehar. May, from Har, the mountain of Baal Hermon. That's the name. Ad, until Levo Hamath. Levo, the coming of, like when one arrives at, is what it's saying. Hamath, that region called Hamath, like the hot area, is what that's saying, the warm area. Maybe it's down a little bit lower from the mountains. Okay, last time through. This time I'm only going to read in Hebrew. Do your best to understand. It's okay, don't get frustrated if you don't, or if it's too fast. That's fine, because your brain is actually going to keep working out these things later. In fact, when you really get your brain rolling with polyglottery, it'll keep you up at night. Like, I have a dear friend who's working on a certain modern language, and we had been doing it together a bit, and I had to roll back, and he's like, don't you want to learn this? And I said, yeah, but the problem is when I start watching shows in a foreign language, what happens is later when I try to sleep at night, I hear those lines in that language. Even if I don't understand them, I hear them again. And it keeps me up, but I can't sleep. So I really have to choose now. I wasn't this way before, by the way. So this is something you might experience as well once you break through some points, right? So I need to kind of pick my battles. Do I really want to bother with learning that right now? Or do I want to have sleep? Now, I don't say this to discourage you. I probably should have told you about that. But if that happens to you, that's a good sign. If this is happening to you where you're hearing things in Hebrew when your mind is at rest, even if you don't understand them, you don't remember them, that's your mind working it out, embedding it in. That is great. And I would not mind if that were about the Holy Tongue, for example. So I know Gary said recently he had some dreams in Hebrew. That's wonderful. That's a wonderful sign. May it be that you all have breakthroughs in your own way, speedily and soon with Lashon HaKodesh. So here we go. I'm going to read through it. I'm not going to tell you the translation, and we'll be finished. It's going to be a bit brisk. You can turn it down if you're watching this on YouTube by clicking the gearbox and set the percentage of speed you want to hear. It does a good job. It won't make my voice go low. It keeps it right. All right. Judges chapter 3, verse 1. Ve'ele hagoyim asher hiniach Adonai לנסות בם את ישראל, את כל אשר לא ידעו, את כל מלחמות כנען. Verse 2. רק למען דעת דרות בני ישראל. ל+למד+ם מלחמה, רק אשר לפנים לא ידעום. Verse 3. חמשת סרני פלשתים, וכל הכנעני, והצידוני, והחיווי, יושב הר הלבנון, מהר בעל חרמון, ועד לבוא חמאס. Shalom, shalom. May you have a blessed rest of your day or evening, whatever the case may be, and may you continue to grow in your journey on Lashon HaKodesh, the Holy Tongue.